ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning for our fifth installment of the 2021 Workforce and Retention webinar series. It's part 5 for us, and today we are going to feature SCDEW, and they have a lot of information to share with us this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Sonia Barkley, and you see on the next slide, we'll have some housekeeping rules for you. I am your moderator for today, and I'm also the Small Business Outreach Manager here at Commerce. So anytime that you do have some questions or anything about your small business, you can certainly reach out to me directly, and I'll be able to assist. My contact information is at the end of the slideshow today. So you'll definitely have that where you can reach me by phone or by email. Just like to let you know today that this webinar is being recorded and all participants are muted and the cameras are off. And we're going to use the chat feature today to submit your questions. So any questions that you have, they will be answered at the end of the presentation. We just want to make sure that you can get through the slideshow and get all through the information that we have for you, that you hear from DEW. And also at the end, you will receive the recording along with any slides and additional information that the ladies from SCDEW will share today. Also at the end, you'll receive a brief survey where we ask you just 3 short questions, 2 yes and no, and 1 just asking for your feedback on there. On the next slide, you have a slide here showing you Ms. Tammy Green and her contact information. Tammy is our manager, and she's the manager over the supplier outreach and small business programs here at Commerce. And any event that you do or you're unable to reach Dayton Water Eye, Dayton is also the supplier outreach manager. If you're unable to reach us, you can certainly reach out to Tammy, and she will be able to assist you with any of your needs that you have for your business. So why are we here today? So earlier this year, we had surveyed over 2,000 companies, and they received the Commerce survey, and we got feedback about the connections made to help them with their business. Did they get the help that they needed? Did they get any of the information they needed from those connections? And what's the impact of that connection? What was the impact of that connection on their business? One question that the survey asked owners was to identify the 3 most important strategic opportunities or challenges that they had with their company. And employee recruitment and retention was number 1. So here we are today with monthly webinars that will highlight additional workforce resources and options that you have as business owners. Today, again, marks our 5th webinar for the series, and in a few minutes, we'll hear from Amy Hill and Lisa Long of SCDEW. So now we know why we're here. And here on this slide, you see who's here today. This chart gives you a snapshot of the top 10 industries represented today, those who had registered today for this webinar. And it also tells the story of how South Carolina businesses share some of the same needs and concerns when it comes to workforce and retention. As you can see, we have everyone from manufacturers to construction, from IT companies to metal fabricators joining us today, and there is help for everyone. Now, your go-to for your staffing needs is still workforce development, it's still SCDEW, it's still SC Works and all the other programs that the state offers to help you with your workforce needs. But this webinar series was designed to introduce other workforce or staffing options that you may not have heard about. And we also share any additional information that we get that may help you when managing your staff. Today, again, we welcome the ladies of SCDEW, who will share some great information about their programs. First, we have Ms. Lisa Long. Let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Lisa. Lisa is Region 1 Area Director with the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce Employment Services Division. Lisa holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology with an emphasis on applied behavior analysis from Kaplan University. Lisa began her career with the agency in 1987 and has worked within many programs and departments within the agency. Since 2014, Lisa has devoted much of her time with the Second Chance program. And this program is a partnership between SCDEW and the South Carolina Department of Corrections, where individuals who are 90 days prior to release are educated on up-to-date work-related topics such as resumes, interviewing skills, letters of explanation, and basic computer skills. We also have joining us today, Ms. Amy Hill, and with 8 years of tenure working in the Workforce and Economic Development Division at the SC Department of Employment and Workforce, Amy serves as the statewide manager of the Work Opportunity Tax Credit and Federal Bonding programs. In addition to overseeing the metrics and standards, she is responsible for outreach and education to ensure employers understand how to fully utilize these programs. Both programs are unique incentives for employers willing to hire individuals with barriers to career opportunities. Ms. Hill holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Limestone College. Her background is in human resources, recruiting, and business and program management. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. I encourage everyone that's on the webinar today to ask questions. Remember, you do have that option to do so in the chat box, and then later make appointments to talk to both Lisa and Amy about their programs and how they can help you in your business. So I will now stop and give the ladies a chance to set up their screens, and now we will hear from both Lisa and Amy about the programs.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's great on this Wednesday. So my name is Lisa Long, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Second Chance program, which is probably one of the most simplest and easiest programs that we have through SCDEW. It's amazing how simple it is. But just to give you a little bit of background on what it is. So back in 2014, we partnered with the Department of Corrections to sit down and figure out how can we better prepare offenders for release out into the world. Some of these individuals have been in 10 plus years, and so we know the world changes daily. So with these individuals being behind the wire for a good many of years, when they come out, it's a little difficult for them to try to get and stay on the right track. So what we came up with was we would actually have what we refer to as a workforce consultant housed in the facilities, and they would work with individuals who were 90 days prior to release, and we would work with them on basic computer skills, soft skills, interviewing skills, job search skills, anything that we could think of to try to help prepare them for employment once they walk through the gate on release day. We have been very successful. We started at the Manning Correctional Institution, which is in Columbia, and it's a pre-release center. And the program did so well that we now have a program at Camille Griffin Graham Correctional, which is in Columbia, and it's a female facility, which poses some different challenges, but nonetheless has been successful as well. To date, we have enrolled a total, a little over 3,000 individuals through the program, with a little over 2,400 of those actually completing the program. So when they leave the facility, they are given several copies of their resume. They're given information on their closest SC Work Center so that they can receive ongoing support. They're given a federal bonding letter that will explain the federal bonding program and what they're to do with that. They're given every resource we can possibly think of that will help them to become employed, because we know they're going to come out and they're going to live beside us. So do we want to try to educate them, bring them up to speed on their skills before they get out, or do we want to do nothing and let them come out? So we chose that it's in everybody's best interest for us to do what we can to try to prepare them for the outside world. In this program, it's very, I will say, in depth. We also, the last 30 days that they're in the facility, they have one-on-one sessions with their case manager to talk through issues such as, if they owe child support coming in to the system, they're still going to owe that same child support when they come out. So therefore, we know if they do not find suitable employment, then their chances of staying on the straight and narrow are slim. We have been successful in putting these individuals back to work. The last percentage that we ran was unfortunately pre-COVID, because unemployment insurance took over everybody's world, which made it a little bit harder for us to get those numbers. But the last percentage that we had was around 72%. This helps corrections, and it helps the taxpayers, it helps everyone, because it reduces recidivism. I can never say that word. It keeps them from going back to prison. The program itself for employers is very simple. What you do is contact your local SD Work Center, explain to them that you're interested in the program, and what do you need to do? All you need to do is post your jobs with us. Just state that you're a second chance employer, which means you're willing to consider this population of people. And then when we work with these ex-offenders, we know that you're an employer that we can send these to for possible employment. So we would send them to you. You would interview them like you would anyone else. And the choice is clearly up to you whether or not they're a good fit for your company. There's no requirement to hire these individuals. All we're asking you to do is just interview them and consider them if they meet your needs. A lot of people say, well, I'm really interested in the program, but I don't, because of my business, I really don't need the general public knowing that I hire ex-offenders. Your secret is our secret. Again, we do have a list of employers in each area that we consider second chance employers, but that is not for public information. That's only for our staff use. I think one of the biggest questions that I received that Sonia sent to me was, how does a company determine whether or not they can risk taking on these individuals? That depends on your own specific policies. For example, a bank is definitely not going to hire an ex-offender in most situations, just because of liability and insurance. So that's something that you as a company would have to consider, whether or not this population is a right fit for you. And so as you can see, the program itself has a big fancy name, and it sounds like a lot, but honestly, it's just a matter of us trying to connect individuals with criminal background with employment. And that's pretty much the program. So does anybody have any questions or?
So far, Lisa, I see no questions in the chat box, and that's a good thing. That means you covered everything that everyone wanted to hear. Oh, here you go. Are there levels of second chance employers? Hold on one second. And this one is from Mike. For instance, violent, I guess non-violent, in any other category.
So when we, to answer that, there's several different parts. So when our staff, in other words, Department of Employment Workforce staff, we do not choose the inmates who participate in this programs. That is done through the Department of Corrections. And in order to come into our program, the individual has to have shown that they are willing to do the work. In other words, if they have a lot of behavioral issues, of course, they're not going to be put into the program. So pretty much the individuals that we receive are those who truly have done the work, because the prisons are not like they used to be. Back in the day, everybody thought, okay, well, somebody goes to prison, they just sit around and watch TV all day long. I will tell you that these individuals are up at 5:30 in the morning, and they are busy all throughout the day in some type of program. They're either working within the facility, they're going to a class, they're getting the GED, they're going through a release program such as what we offer. So it is possible in these programs that we will have someone that's been in for, violent crimes. But when they get to us, they pretty much held themselves accountable for what they've done, and they're ready to start a new life. So I hope that answered your question, Mike.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for the question. I can usually count on Mike for a question when we have a webinar. Thanks so much for joining us. There was another question from M. Kess. Can you tell us how to sign up at our local SC Work Center? And is there a website or link that you can provide? I don't know, Lisa, can you drop that in the chat box if you can?
Yep, I sure will. I sure will. And it's real simple. All you do is just reach out to your local SC Work Center. You can find that online. If you can't find it, you're more than happy to call me. I'll put my phone number in there and my email address as well. And I will point you to the right center. And you just tell them exactly what it is that you're looking for, and they will have someone there that can help you.
Great, thank you. We have another question. It says here from STEM, once an inmate is released, how do we deal with the other issues inmates may have, such as transportation to and from work, housing, and identification?
Very good question. So we know that when an inmate comes out, they'd have all of these issues. We try really hard to work with them prior to release on, asking them questions. Okay, tell me where you plan to live. If you get a job, how are you going to get there? The identification piece was a very big struggle for all of us, because if they don't have identification, then they're not going to be able to go to work. If they don't have an address, they're not going to be able to go to work. So we try to work with them inside the facility before they're released. And we also work with partners that help with these types of issues. So when they come out, they pretty much know, okay, I don't have anywhere to live. Who do I call? Well, you call this person. If I don't have transportation, we try to scope out public transportation in whatever area they're going to, because we know when they're released what area of the state they're going to. So we try to work on that in the beginning. If once they come to you, and you do hire them or are interested in hiring them, and they still have these issues, then they can definitely reach out to us and we can point them in the right direction. So we want this to be a partnership. If you're interested in hiring this population of people, but they have these issues, point them to, send them to us, and then we'll know how to work through some of these issues for them.
Great, thank you so much, Lisa. We have a few more questions coming in. Are there any stats that can ease an employer's mind for second chance employees, or any stats available?
I don't have any stats, so to speak, but I can tell you that we do have many employers across the state who will tell you that not every single person that they've hired through this program has been the bright and shining star, because there's always that one. But we do have several employers across the state who honestly will openly state that if they could fill their entire company with these individuals, they would, because most of the time these are good people, made bad decisions. They don't want to go back, so they're going to work harder than your average person to try to make sure that they stay on the straight and narrow. They're very dedicated. They're eager to learn. And so there are a lot of employers who really think that this is a great pool to pull from.
Great, thanks so much for your questions. STEM has a couple more questions. What is the current WOTC for employers?
Hey, this is Amy. What I'm going to do is, after we go through the actual presentation, it may make a little bit more sense for you and answer your question. But as far as the second part of the question, is there any employers out there for level 5 offenders? There's employers out there for every level of offenders. It's going to depend on the individual employer's hiring policies, which really can't be changed through any program, because they have to stick with their hiring policies. And Lisa may be able to answer as far as the SC Works centers. They know the hiring practices of employers in the local areas better than we do. Department of Labor does not require that the WOTC program retain a list of employers that hire certain levels of offenders. So we don't keep a list, and we also protect our client and businesses information, because, you know, a lot of folks, like Lisa said, employers are not willing to be put out there as known as a second chance employers in some cases, because then you know, they'll get overwhelmed with certain individuals coming for employment, which is a good thing. But we do try to not put lists out there just to protect the client relationship with us as well. But definitely we are not required to keep an employer list through DOL. So it's something we just don't do here in WOTC. Lisa, do you have any comments on that as far as SC Works?
No, and I noticed in the question, it asks, are there any employers out there for level 5 offenders? And the answer to that is yes. Now, of course, again, it depends on the type of business. We have a lot of construction companies, a lot of painters, painting companies that will take, you know, anyone in this population, as long as they've shown that they put forth effort to try to overcome, you know, the issues that got them there to begin with. But normally they start these individuals out at entry level, unless they come out with a lot of skills. I mean, you know, if you go inside the prison and you see some of the work that some of these inmates have done, it is amazing how talented they are. And they just made a bad decision. So yes, there are employers out there who will hire level 5 offenders.
Great. Thank you so much, both Lisa and Amy, for answering these questions. We will continue to monitor the chat box for any additional questions, and then we'll tackle those at the end. Like Amy had chimed in, and thank you so much, Amy, for chiming in with that. There may be some great information that'll be shared within her presentation that will also answer your questions that you have. So we'll go ahead and jump and move forward right with Amy's presentation at this time.
All right, let me see if I can successfully do screen share. Okay, is that visible to everyone?
Yes, it is.
All right, great. So like Sonia said, I'm Amy Hill, and I manage both the Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program and federal bonding programs. They are U.S. Department of Labor programs, which are administered here out of the South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce. They are unique incentives for employers that are willing to hire individuals that face barriers to employment. The Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program, we encourage all employers to do the screening, either at the application process or the hiring process. And we'll go through the presentation and you'll see how this works. And of course, I'll leave my information in the chat box as well so that you can contact me afterwards. And I'll show you a couple of the forms real quick between presentations just to kind of show you how easy it is for you to implement this process into your possible application or orientation. So again, it is a federal incentive program. WOTC is unique in that it has bipartisan support from Congress. So we've had the opportunity to have renewals year after year, and this past renewal occurred through the Consolidated Appropriations Act. And as of December 31st, 2020, we were renewed for another 5 years. That's only happened twice in the history of the program. But the reason that I mention that is because once employers get into the process of applying for these certifications for individuals that they do hire, you want to continue that process, even if Congress hasn't renewed the program because it'll go into hiatus. And in order to continue to be timely, we just encourage employers to continue the process as far as sending in the certification requests. And I'll explain that more in a moment. But just to know also, WOTC, of course, is a federal incentive that reduces the federal tax liability of an employer for hiring these individuals. It can be combined with state tax credits. And I'll give you one as an example, and you may not be aware of this one, so it'll be a good thing for you to research afterwards too. So we have a long-term TANF target group, which is temporary assistance to needy families. And that target group is a product of the Department of Social Services, formerly known as welfare. So if an individual participated in that long term, we can most of the time provide a certification after verifying the benefits through the DSS system, but the DSS offers a state tax credit for TANF. So they have their own filing process that you can find on their website. So just so that you know, and then that would reduce the state tax credit liability. So there are other tax credits out there that can be taken at the same time as the WOTC. Federal bonding, which we will go over at the end of this presentation. And just so you know that on-the-job training and registered apprenticeships, if there are any federally subsidized wages, you want to make sure you don't include those in the calculation at the end of the employee's first year, because it would need to be wages in the calculation directly paid from the employer. And your CPA or tax preparer can go over that with you when the time comes. Okay, so individuals that qualify for, sorry, I went one, two, no, I didn't. Okay, individuals that qualify. I won't go over all of the criteria for the individual targeted groups because it is a little bit in depth, but I'll kind of run through some of them so you'll get a general idea. So the first one, since we're talking about second chance employers today, is Exfelon, and it is very specific to identifying ex-felons in this target group, and this is just the WOTC incentive. It is for employers that will give that second chance to someone that has been convicted or released from a felony conviction or is on a work release while imprisoned for a felony conviction within 1 year of being hired. So that is very specific. It doesn't apply to misdemeanors or arrest records. And the opportunity to get a tax credit, and we'll go over how much these tax credits are a little later in the presentation. But there's also the DSS products, as we discussed earlier, temporary assistance to needy families. We actually have a long-term and short-term. Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program is formerly known as the Food Stamp Program. An individual that may live in a designated community resident. And see, some of these barriers may not seem like barriers to me and you, but it may be to them due to transportation or other issues. But we have empowerment zones in the Columbia-Sumter area, and they are certain addresses within certain zip codes within those areas. So we have a tool that we can use to determine whether or not they live at a certain one of those addresses. Summer youth is 16 to 17-year-olds hired between May 1 and September 15 that live in an empowerment zone. Rural renewal community, which is anyone 18 to 39 that lives in Marlboro County anywhere. So we also have vocational rehabilitation. So if you work with the SCDEW rehab folks and finding staff, you may possibly get a tax credit for hiring them. Ticket to Work participant is it is a Social Security Administration identified programs that folks are identified through the Ticket to Work program. You could get a tax credit for hiring those individuals. Supplemental Security Income recipient, not to be confused with the Social Security benefit, although folks can receive SSI for a multitude of reasons. Long-term unemployment recipient, that is the big one right now due to all the folks that are coming off of unemployed situations due to the pandemic. and unemployed veteran or disabled veteran target groups. And just to go over a little bit more into that, we won't go through what qualifies them as a WOTC veteran. You don't need to worry about that. That is something that we will go through to make sure that they served enough active duty time. Dishonorable discharge vets are sometimes excluded from programs. Just know that they are not excluded from participating or being qualifying a business for the tax credit or being federally bonded. So that's good news. And if you are a 501 nonprofit business and you hire an individual that it's a qualifying veteran target group, you can also take the tax credit as well. It comes off your taxes a little different. It would be the Social Security portion instead of the general tax. But again, that's only for hiring qualified veterans. The rest of the target groups are for-profit businesses. Some of those qualifying veterans may have partaken in the SNAP program through the DSS. There's disabled veterans that have been discharged within a year, disabled veterans that's been unemployed 6 months or more. And let me just say the disability is only 10% or greater. It could be something that you're not aware of and you can't visibly see, so screening is important. Unemployed veterans 4 or more weeks, less than 6 months though, because we do have another unemployed veteran 6 months or longer. There are target groups that have a heavier or a more valued tax credit, and the biggest tax credit is available for hiring disabled veterans unemployed 6 months or longer, and I'll show you a little bit more about that when we get to the chart, the calculation chart. So individuals that are not eligible for an employer to submit or take a tax credit, because you may submit it and we don't know the relationship, so we may issue a certification. I want to caution you that if they fall within these ineligible groups, not to take the tax credit, even if we've issued a certification, because we may not know the relationship, but the IRS certainly may. And these are auditable tax credits that can be audited. Rehires, definitely. Our wage records only go back so far, so we try to indicate who is a rehire, but ultimately the responsibility is the employer, and you want to make sure that you don't take tax credits for any rehires. Relatives or non-relative dependents of the company owner, and applicants whose request was not filed with our office within 28 days of the start date. Our online system won't even take those. It's a DOL requirement that it has to be within 28 days of the start date, not the hire date. Self-employed individuals, contractors or vendors that may invoice your company for work that they've performed, or 1099 employers. The key there is that federal taxes must be deducted from their wages. So submission requirements for the company, there are 2 simple forms, and I'll show you those forms in just a moment, that most employers choose to put the IRS Form 8850, which is a pre-screen notification form, in their application process. But I want to caution you, you cannot screen employees and make hiring decisions based on their indication of eligibility. Most employers, or a lot of employers out there, to avoid this perception, puts both of these forms, the IRS 8850 and the ETA, which is a Department of Labor form, 9061 form, they put both of those in their orientation onboarding process with the I-9 and the W-4. You definitely want to stick within that 28-day deadline from the start date to get those submitted to us. The good news is those forms are filled out by the newly hired employee. You will put your company's identifying information on them and keep them on file at your office. You will, if you have a WOTC account online through the online portal, do the data entry with that information. You don't want to hold any submission up for supporting documentation like a DD-214. We can always get that at a later time. No limits on credits taken, which is really good news, because if you hire 24 people and they all qualify for a $2,400 tax credit, you're going to get to multiply that out and take those tax credits to reduce your general tax liability. If there is leftover tax credits, You can also talk to your CPA about subrogation. I'm not sure how that works, but again, I'm not a CPA, so I can't give tax advice. I would just encourage you to work with your CPA closely if you're not able to take all of the tax credits in the year that you're filing. So the required forms can be obtained through our website. We link back to the IRS and the DOL so that those forms are always up to date and current. And also the instruction forms, they don't always have a reflective date that's the same. So we just connect back to those sites so you don't have to go visit 2 different sites, but you can also connect and get those updated forms through the US Department of Labor. The submission methods for employers, we have, of course, the online portal, which you would enter those, or you can also mail them to our office. It's a little bit slower, and then also it's more secure if you choose to do the online submission, of course. After submission, you can expect that we're going to review those for you and issue a certification or denial. The thing to note there is that if we issue a denial on an individual that you submitted, you want to read that denial to make sure that we are not missing some documentation that you could easily retrieve. If you can retrieve it, you have a year from the original denial date to submit documentation that would result in a certification, and we'll review that for you and make a final determination. When you calculate the tax credit, a couple of things that I'm going to show you the chart and how to access that as well. You'll definitely want to work with your CPA or your tax preparer. Most of the time, companies work with their HR and their payroll department to calculate these tax credits so that they don't have an extra charge through their tax preparer. It just depends on how you want to do it. But you would need to receive a certification on each individual that you submitted or a denial. But if you receive the certification, you can take the tax credit by calculating making sure that the employee met the minimum retention period, and I'll show you that in a second. But there is a qualifying wage cap with each target group, and that'll also be on the next slide. But the for-profit entities, just so you know, you really don't have to worry about this if you have a tax preparer, but they will use IRS forms 5884 and 3800 to take that tax credit for you. And also the nonprofit entities, remember when hiring a veteran, new hire only, they would use the 5884C. So this is what the top portion of the for-profit calculation chart looks like. The not-for-profit one is a little bit different, but if you notice, the very first column has the targeted groups. These are the non-veteran target groups. All of these tax credits are based on the first year of employment, anniversary date to anniversary date, except we do have that one long-term TANF. It is a 2-year tax credit. So the second column shows that they would need to work at least 120 hours, but less than 400 to be able to calculate 25% of the first year's wages up to those wage caps, which are listed below. Once they hit 400 hours or above, you can take 40% of their first year's wages up to that wage cap, but noticing that long-term TANF does have a 2-year calculation there. The second half of this form has the veterans on it. And again, this is for profit. The first column showing the veteran targeted groups, and the second again showing that they have to work at least 120 hours. So let me just mention this really quick. If you do get a certification for a new hire that ended up leaving your business at 119 hours, but we've provided you a certification, I do want to caution you not to take that tax credit because that certification is actually null if they don't meet the 120 minimum requirement retention period. And of course, the nonprofit for, again, hiring qualified veterans only would take a little bit different of a percentage. If you notice the second column, it would be 16.25% up to the wage cap. Once they hit the 400 hours, it'd be 26% up to the wage cap. And again, that would come off the Social Security portion of the taxes rather than the for-profit, which is the general tax liability. So during the question break, and y'all could please feel free to go ahead and start inserting questions into the question section, but I do want to slide over into the screen. And Sonia, would you let me know if you see this, the DEW website in the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. So if you go on the dew.sc.gov website, you'll go to the employers tab and then to employer resources, and then scroll down and you'll see all the employer resources, and WOTC and federal bonding are both here. You can get to the pages, and I'll just go to WOTC real quick, but so you can see the gist. But we have information here. We have all of the tools and forms and the calculation charts and the brochures, which will give you a little bit better of insight as to the criteria of the target groups, and also a link to the Department of Labor's website as well. And there's also a new DOL tool, which is a WOTC quick reference guide for employers. I strongly encourage everyone to visit the DEW website and get that information. But do we have any questions as far as WOTC before we move on to federal bonding?
The only question that I see right now is just asking to find a list of zip codes that are part of the empowerment zone in Columbia.
That is a great question. Let me pull this back over here. So if you go to the Department of Labor's website, and you'll see the work opportunity tax credit here, you'll go under the resources. And under that resources tab, and watch it's going to be slow today, there is an empowerment zone address locator tool here that you can pre-check those addresses if you want to. But if they're in a Columbia or Sumter address, you really don't have to go to that detailed level. If you don't want to, we would be happy to check that for you. But just so you know, it is on the DOL website. And you would have to, I believe you have to have Excel 2013 or better to use it. Any more questions? And I'm sorry, I apologize, Sonia, I can't see them because my screen is still.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you so much, Kess. Kess has a lot of questions for us, and that's great. But so far, we haven't had anything else, and I guess this is a great time to go ahead and continue, and we can address any additional questions at the end.
Absolutely, would be happy to do that. So, and let me get back to my screen where I can advance. There we go. So federal bonding, again, is a U.S. Department of Labor program, and it is administered here out of the Department of Employment and Workforce. And this is actually going to be a fantastic tool for all those second chance employers. And it has a long history, over 50 years. And we were talking about statistics earlier, and I didn't want to bump into Lisa's presentation or answering the question, but we have one great statistic from this program. Out of the 50 years that it's been in use, there is less than 1% claims filed for a second chance individual that went to work and was bonded through this program. So out of 50 states and 50 plus years, less than 1% is a highly successful statistic. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But it is for the purpose, the program is for the purpose to assist these high-risk job seekers to obtain employment by us issuing a Fidelity Insurance bond on the individual for the employer to protect them against loss of money or property resulting from a covered employee's act of dishonesty. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second of what act of dishonesty means. But it is for the purpose to cover judiciary involved individuals, and not like the WOTC program as far as very specific to Exfelon. This will cover any individual that you need or you would feel more comfortable covering as a condition of their employment. They could have a record of arrest, a misdemeanor conviction, or a felony conviction. It does not matter what level. Recovering addicts would fall into this category. I would just caution you that if a file is claimed and they were found to be using, you may run into some issues. But also, poor personal credit, lack of work history, and again, dishonorable discharge folks are not excluded from being bonded for an employer to mitigate risk. And that is absolutely what federal bonding does for an employer, is it mitigates risk. Now, those second chance folks that are coming to you, an act of dishonesty would be defined as forgery, embezzlement, larceny, or theft. So if that happens and by a covered employee, you would be able to file a claim and get the value, the current value of whatever was whatever occurred, whether it be money or equipment, things of that nature. You would be able to file a claim and get that back without a deductible. And what it does not cover, of course, is poor workmanship. If they break something, that would not be covered. Any part of their salary is not covered. Job injuries, we know that as workers' comp. No bail, court, contract, or licensing fees are covered. It's specific to forgery, embezzlement, larceny, and theft committed by an individual. The benefits to the employer, of course, so this is a Fidelity Insurance policy that we offer at no cost to the employer, and nothing is deducted from the new hire's pay. So you don't have paperwork. It does provide you with 6 months of coverage, which automatically will terminate. But if you would like to carry the policy an additional 6 months, you will have the insurance company's information. They'll send you a sheet of paper. And then you can contact them and cover them for an additional 6 months at a market rate, which I believe is very low. Again, no cost. But the good news is that we have increments of $5,000 that we can cover because you, as the employer, know what your risk is. We can cover it in $5,000 increments up to $25,000. We're not going to come out and assess your value. We trust employers to assess that coverage as they need it. We just ask that everybody try to be conservative when doing it, because the more that we can cover and get a second chance is much more helpful to our economy to get these second chance folks re-employed, to reduce, and Lisa, I have trouble with that word too, but it's recidivism. We want to be able to help reduce that occurrence. The $25,000, please don't be intimidated asking for that amount. We will certainly cover at what your needs are. So the benefits, just so you know, to the job seeker is it is a leveraging tool that they can use to let employers know that they are not taking a financial risk to become one of your new hires. And it gives them a second chance at no cost. And again, there's that word. I'm going to skip over it. I can only take a chance saying it once. So the program restrictions are the eligibility. They must be registered in SE Works, and so should the employer. That's how we track the federal dollars that I spend on purchasing the bonds on behalf of the company. And they do need to be a newly hired individual, so they don't need to be a new hire, a brand new hire. So they could be returning to your employment after serving a little time. Also, they do need to have automatic deduction of federal taxes from their wages, nothing additional. We can assist current employees with layoff aversion. Let's say that they went out one weekend, had a little incident. Instead of firing them, let them get through the judiciary system and let that conclude before you make a final decision. But if it would avert a layoff, we'd be happy to bond them for you. Also to secure a promotion, because there are some second chance folks that want to advance in your company, and they may want to have or apply for a management position if there's financial responsibility. If it would secure that promotion for them, we'd be happy to bond them for that position as well. So ineligible, the current employees, except those 2 exceptions. And they do need to meet the legal age requirement to work in South Carolina. So I always joke and say, please don't hire an 8-year-old and try to bond them. I can't imagine why we would need to bond an 8-year-old anyway, but also self-employed or independent contractors are not eligible because of course that goes back to federal taxes being deducted from their wages. The steps for the job seekers, they may come to you with a federal bonding voucher, which is the letter that Lisa was telling you about earlier. And I'm going to show you a picture of what that looks like. They can go through SC Works, of course, being registered there, and they will distribute these vouchers to employers, which will have instructions on how to contact me to get the individual bonded for your business as a condition of their employment. Steps for the employer, of course, you need to be registered with SC Works as well. You need to offer employment and set a start date and contact us through our federal bonding email. And the reason we use the generic emails is because it goes to all of the staff in our unit. And if I happen to be out, they would be able to answer your questions and assist you or let you know when to expect me to return. Also, we will get a little bit of information from you so that we can locate you in SC Works and the individual employee. So this is the end of the presentation here, but we do again have information on the DEW website, and it's the same access that I showed just a moment ago. And you go onto the DEW website and go under the employer resources. One thing I wanted to show you before we end is that the information, we do have business partner letters if you email me, but of course I will send this to Sonia so that she can distribute it, but it tells how to get started with WOTC and how to contact me, and it also gives you information about federal bonding. The second, I wanted to show you what the pre-screen notice certification for WOTC looks like. This form is what you would put into either your application process or your onboarding. And if they identify with options 2 through 7, and they would need to sign it and date it, your information for the company would go at the top, and you would sign it and date it and give your title. That is the pre-screen notification form. Again, could go in the application process or the onboarding with, and those are just the instructions, which are on our website. With the ETA 9061 form, which is the DOL form, your company information would go 3 through 11. And we do need this information as a complete application. But again, they would fill out whether or not, see these check marks, whether or not they identify with the targeted groups. It gives us just a little bit more detail to help us with the certification process. And just in case you're wondering, the instructions are at the end of this form. The other one is going to be that the calculation charts are also on our website, and our brochures, which gives a little bit of the process here, 1, 2, and 3 steps, so simple. And it gives a little bit more criteria information on the targeted groups. And of course, we also have one on the federal bonding website that will sum it up. So if you wanted to print those out, you would have those at your fingertips. But all those resources, again, are on our website. Is there any questions about federal bonding?
From what I can see, Amy, it looks like you may have covered everything for everyone. I don't see any additional questions in the chat box, but I didn't want to limit our registrants, the folks who are on here right now, to just the chat box. If you think of other questions later, if you would like to reach out to Amy or Lisa directly, you can, or you can come through Commerce, and we'll certainly make those connections for you. But whatever you think of later on, maybe something after the webinar that you forgot to ask may have just slipped your mind, but please reach out to any of us here and we'll make sure you get answers. It looks like that's about it. And thank you so much, both Lisa and Amy, for joining the webinar series. This is some great information. I hope that everyone just learned something today and take advantage of the program if you can. It's always great to give everyone a chance for employment, and we all have those employment issues right now with our business owners, and trying to do everything that we can to give you other resources and alternatives when it comes to employers and looking for valid or valuable employees. Thank you again, ladies, for that. If Terrell is on, we want to ask that we put our slides up for our contact information. Again, my name is Sonia Barkley. I'm the Small Business Outreach Manager. For anything small business, you can reach out to me. My phone number is there. My email is there as well. And if there is an opportunity for you to look at our Size Up SC platform on our commerce website, you can find that information right there. And it's a great business tool that can help you as far as employment as well. You can actually plug in what you would pay your way for annual wages for your employees, just to see how you size up against other companies like yours within the state, within your county, within the nation as well, just to see where you are as far as wages go. So there's a lot of different tools there, but I just decided to drop that in so you guys can see that logo if you join our website for our BizDev website for commerce. Also, I'd like to introduce Dayton. Dayton will tell you a little bit about himself. He's our Supplier Outreach Program Manager, and he'll share some things about Source SC for you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. All right, let's try this again. Sorry about that. If everyone can hear me okay now, my name is Dayton Ward. I work as the Supplier Outreach Program Manager here at the South Carolina Department of Commerce. I just dropped all of my contact information into the chat as well, along with a link to Source SC, which I'm about to tell you a little bit about. So in the spirit of supporting our valued South Carolina businesses and industries, I'd like to share with you today a little bit about some of the resources and tools that we offer that may be of assistance to you and your business. One of those resources of particular focus is Source SC, Commerce's very own industry directory. Source SC is a statewide material and service locator database. It is leveraged to match specific capabilities of companies with their supply chain requirements. So businesses can work one-on-one with a commerce team member for specific sourcing requests, or you can utilize the database to find local suppliers, as well as be listed a local supplier to grow your business. Among the benefits of being a part of Source SC are, well, some of the services that I provide. So when you sign your company up for Source SC, you receive email notification of B2B networking and outreach events throughout the state. So that's just a chance to kind of stay on top of any networking opportunities you may hear about, so that you can get connected with everyone from OEMs to other small to mid-size companies. As a registered Source SC company, you are automatically included in sourcing requests when a company contacts us to be connected with local suppliers. So in other words, if your company meets the needs of another company, then by default, your hat is thrown into the ring. You don't have to ask to be included. If you meet the needs of another company that's searching for your services, we automatically send them their way. Now, it doesn't include contact information, basic things like the name of your business, your address, website, and general business phone number. At the end of the day, we like to consider ourselves, kind of the go-between. If you're looking to get connected with somebody, hopefully I can help you with that, and vice versa. Additionally, as a Source SC company, you are listed in the industry directory found on the Commerce website. So again, for confidentiality, direct contact information is not shared on the website. Folks will often come to us and ask for that, and then I'll turn around, reach out to you and say, hey, are you interested in speaking with company XYZ? And then go from there. Lastly, Source SC is available at no charge. The only requirement is that participating companies have a physical presence in South Carolina. So again, to learn more about this platform and to get registered, please go to www.sourcesc.com. Thank you so much for your time today. Please do not hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to discuss this in greater detail. Thanks, and back to you, Sonia.
Thanks so much, Dayton, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. Lastly, I'd just like to draw your attention to the BizFeed Subscribe Today logo at the bottom of this slide. You'll get that link as well when we send out the recording and everything else, but it's a great newsletter that we have here at Commerce that'll tell you about upcoming events like this, along with some other information to share what happens in the Business Services Division. In the Business Services Division here at Commerce, we consist of small business, supplier outreach, recycling, and existing industry, along with key accounts and emergency management as well. So all of those fall under our umbrella, and you can receive information by email on a monthly basis if you subscribe to BizFeed. On the next slide, you'll see our next upcoming, our part 6 of the South Carolina Workforce and Retention Series. We're going to feature the SCMEP, the South Carolina Manufacturing Partnership, and they too have small businesses. There are some manufacturers that are considered small business, and that's anyone who employs 500 employees or less. And there are some great opportunities there. This is not limited to just manufacturers. So if you are a small business operating outside of that industry, please join us, because there may be some great information that can be transferred over to small businesses outside of manufacturing. It's on Wednesday, November 3rd from 11 to 12. And as attendees today and registrants for this webinar, you'll receive the link to join this one as well. Again, we'd like to thank the ladies of SCDEW, Amy Hill and Lisa Long, for joining us today and sharing the great information. Want to remind you that you can still submit questions. You have all of our contact information will be available on the slideshow and on the recording. And look forward to our very short survey. We do need your feedback. We want to know how we can help you in the future, if there are some other topics that you would like Commerce to bring forth and to show you and show some additional resources to help your business. Thank you so much for joining today, and we ask that you have a great week. Thank you.